Hello and welcome to another video of So They Say. Thank you so much for the response I got to the mucking video. If you carry on subscribing and liking the video, it's fantastic, and share it. I think we've got 10 more subscribers during that time, so that's really great news. We're still looking at Thurrock at the moment, and we're only moved a few miles up the hill to Horndon-on-the Hill and a little place called the Boleyn. Horndon is a very historical place with a wool market. There's essential for the trade of the area, with its links to London, just being up the hill from the docks of which we had at Mucking and at Fobbing, so it's much essentially a trade route going through. The Boleyn is listed in the Domesday Book, and being so old, over 500 years old, it's had many historical events in it and around it that's happened. And one of the ones we're looking at is Thomas Higbee. Now Thomas, he was a Protestant. He did not conform under Henry VIII, and they burnt him at the stake in the courtyard of the Boleyn. Not sort of the pub entertainment you get these days, I guess, but yeah, so there's a blue plaque on the outside of the wall. Well, it says Thomas Higbee, Martyr. I think the date is, I'll cheat, it's down here, 26th of March 1555. So yeah, a long time ago. So yeah, as I say, pub entertainment's changed since then. Now what would have happened during these times is that obviously they would have been tried somewhere else, taken back and be burnt at the stake in their own villages, to make a statement to the other people around that area that might have been following him at that time during his faith. Now obviously this is So They Say, and it's So They Say it's haunted. So yeah, there's going to be a few ghost stories coming out now. I did notice on the analytics of my last video, as soon as I've got off the history and got onto the ghost stuff, the views dropped a little bit. But if you're here for the ghost stuff, well, you come to the right place, and this is where we can get into it now. There are reports of, in the courtyard, the smell of smoke. Now, I'm not being sceptical, I know I tend to be, but no, you're out in an open courtyard, and Horndon has got a lot of old chimneys and stuff like that. To smell smoke around that sort of courtyard isn't unusual. What I will say is that the Boleyn has had a few fires in its history. I don't know, people say this is payback, and it's so the ghost of Thomas Higbee actually setting these fires, and they've mainly happened around the kitchen area. So I say there could be another explanation for it, more than likely. But again, it's one of those things that people have reported seeing a figure normally just before a fire happens around the area. Another interesting bit of history we have for Horndon is witchcraft. So in 1574, Mrs. Sloman and her friend Mrs. Slaughter were convicted as witches. Now often they would be held in the local inn. I know that happened at Fobbing, where the people that were charged with witchcraft were held overnight in the inn before they were taken to Chelmsford, where they were tried. And this is probably the case where we had it at Horndon. So these two ladies would have been held in Horndon in the inn until the next day before they transferred to Chelmsford, or the length of time being transferred to Chelmsford for their trial as a witch. Due to this, there is some strange events that are said to occur around not just the Boleyn, but also just a little bit around Horndon. Not surprisingly, they link it to Halloween. I'm not saying that Halloween is this very haunted evening, but I guess a lot of people go out trying to find ghosts and witches around that time of year. So I'm not surprised that people are more susceptible to the notion that someone could be haunted or could have witches when it's documented that they actually did exist in the area, or people accused of it existed in the area, I should say. Not they were definitely witches, as we know history teaches us a lot. But what we do know, in about 1848, there were reports of some strange happenings around the village of Horndon that actually put it back and blamed on witches from the past. These are sort of the local myths and legends that come up in Horndon. As I say, a tight community often has a lot of travellers coming through it, and people do like to spread gossip, rumours and tell tales sitting around in the inn of a night time. So often these stories of the witches would come up. So on this one we have Mrs. Sloman, who is said to haunt the alleyway and the footpath going down the side of the inn. Now, quite interestingly, down that footpath of the side of the inn is probably where I felt the weirdest I've ever felt on when we've been going to these haunted locations. I don't know, it was Halloween. I said I don't really go out on Halloween. It was Halloween, and I felt very, very depressed walking down that alleyway, and yeah, it had a strange feeling. It's worth to have a walk down there. It opens up onto a big field at the back. Incidentally, that field is linked to another story from history, and that's Anne Boleyn. So the rumour is that once Anne Boleyn was executed, either a head or a heart was taken back to Horndon-on-the Hill. Now this is so it could be reunited with her father. Now her father owned Fobbin Hall, which we'll cover in another video. Not the hall itself, but just Fobbin. So there was links to having land ownership by Anne Boleyn's father in the area. So the suggestion is that her heart or her head was brought back and buried in the field behind the Bell Inn. This has led to reports of the ghost of Anne Boleyn being around Horndon-on-the Hill. There's a few and far between reports, I will say, but they are still there. They're still listed as a ghost story of Horndon-on-the Hill. So as the Bell Inn is today, it's got some lovely rooms that you can stay in. The Bell Inn is a fantastic place to go to have lunch or to stay there. We stayed there, me and my wife, on our honeymoon. Just editing this video, I'll better point out that it's actually for my wedding night, the night we got married, not my honeymoon. I'm not that cheap, honest. And there are lots of different rooms you can stay in. You've got the Madame de Barry suite. Now the Madame de Barry suite, like a lot of the other rooms, has got a history of people being seen standing at the bed during the night, at the end of the bed. Now one of these occasions happened to a newly married couple, not myself. What did happen on this occasion was that, almost like a replay of time, so this lady woke up in the middle of the night. She was thirsty, she got up to get a glass of water. As she turned round, she see this figure of a lady, an old-fashioned lady, the old sort of dresses, standing by the doorway. But at the same time she saw a gentleman at the corner of her eye, who she described as being thick sort of set, lot of heavy clothing on, very, very dark clothing, that seemed to be terrorising the other lady. Obviously the guest was very, very panicky, tried to wake her husband up. Obviously, as you know, these ghost stories go, when the husband woke up, everything had gone back to normal. As a one-off, you could put that down to hearsay or just people making it up. But this has actually been repeated several times, and again it's one of the most common reported ghost stories of the Madame de Barry suite, of this thick-set gentleman who brings a lot of fear to people who actually see him. The other room we have at the Bell Inn is the Anne Boleyn suite. Now again, obviously based on the links with the history of Anne Boleyn, may have part of her body buried at the rear of the property. It's named after her. It is, I wouldn't say undoubtedly, the most haunted place in the Bell Inn. It certainly has the most reported sightings of people in the room. And this goes from items being moved around on the units by the bed, to seeing dark figures moving across the room, to people waking up and seeing figures standing at the bottom of the bed. One lady described the feeling of cold hands placed around her neck while she was sleeping. Lots of reports based on this. What I will say is, I'm not saying it's an explanation, but during our investigation we did find that behind the bed, behind the wall of the bed, was the electrical box system for the upper floors of the Bell Inn. And as you know, EMF can play a big role in how it affects our brain waves. So if you have a lot of electrical items around your bed for night time, you may get a disturbed sleep, because the electromagnetic field can disturb your brain waves and keep them active. And keep in mind that the bed in the in the Anne Boleyn suite is a wrought iron frame at the back, and that combined with an electrical supply just behind the wall, it could be that the EMF reading was high. It was high when we tested it. Has something to do with these people visualizing these things that may or may not be there. As I say, the Anne Boleyn suite again is a lovely room. It feels very, very welcoming when you go in there. Many people have spent many happy nights there, but you got to remember that how old this building is. It's over 500-year old. So many people have stayed in that room. You know, big historical figures have stayed in that room. So a room can have an atmosphere without being haunted, but that doesn't really account for the next story of the Anne Boleyn suite. So a man and lady had spent a nice night at the Boleyn. They woke up in the morning and they'd gone down for their breakfast. They set all their suitcases out, ready to leave. When they come back up from breakfast, all their suitcases have been emptied back out over the bed, but set out in very, very neat piles. Completely freaked out the staff. It was put down to an error, as if they may have not done it. You know, did they think they packed and they hadn't packed? But the couple were convinced that they actually packed away all their stuff. The other story that I've been made aware of since we done our investigation, I think it's about 2003 that we done our investigation, maybe in 2005, is also of Anne Boleyn suite, and there's a chimney in there and a fireplace, and it's the ghost of a child chimney sweep. I didn't really find much detail on this one. There's just a few reports that people saw a child that they believed was a chimney sweep kneeling at the bottom of the chimney stack. He seemed to be quite upset, and when I look back at our investigation, we did actually put some items, a bowl, a tray that had flour on it, and a wine glass in the fireplace, right by the fireplace, to see if they moved overnight. We've done a whole full night investigation of the Boleyn, and obviously nothing did move. Now, although I've just sort of knocked orbs, I am aware that on those videos there were orbs that moved around in non-conventional dust pattern. What I mean is that they didn't just sort of float around as if they were dust. I say I'm not a great believer in orbs. I do think most have, or if not all, have an explanation. But I do know, getting rather excited at that time of looking at the video of these orbs moving around by the fireplace. For the bar area itself, there have been a lot of reports of glasses and bottles flying off of the counter and smashing. Again, you get a lot of those reports in old villages and pubs and inns across the country. As you leave the pub area, you go into the courtyard that say this is where Thomas Higbed was burned at the stake. We're not exactly sure of the exact location of it. It's not marked on the ground of where it actually happened, or that I believe, but it's marked out on where it happened. We have reports of the sound of coaches drawing in of night time. Obviously we don't get that no more, no more coaches come in. So people would stay there quite often, hear horse sounds or cobbles where carts were rolling over the cobbles. This is where we come to our last ghost of the Boleyn. Should I say our last three ghosts of the Boleyn. So this ghost story is regarding three gentlemen that are seen standing in the courtyard in what's described as sort of cape, almost like coach wearing capes for a coachman would wear. They seem to be huddled into a little group discussing, and people get the feeling of fear and dread when they see them. I think I'd feel more than that, wouldn't you? If you're standing there and you see three ghosts standing there dressed in black, yeah, I think I'd feel more than fear and dread. I'll be gone. See you later. I think that's the thing about ghosts. I want ghosts to go, hello, I'm a ghost. You know, I don't get this. If you're a ghost, why would you just knock a glass off a counter? It's I don't know. I do love ghost stories. I think they're great. I've set up Thurrock Paranormal to try and go and find them, but in a skeptical way. I want proof that ghosts are there. I love these stories because when you speak to the people that have seen them, they know they've seen something, but we don't know how that image was put into their head. Did they literally see it, or did they imagine it, or was it to do with EMF and electromagnetic fields that stimulated brainwaves in some way? I want there to be ghosts. There's no wonder there's so much history and myths and legends within Thurrock, and especially this part of East Thurrock, where you've got the likes of Mucking, Horndon and Fobbing. They're so old, and they've been visited by thousands of historical people, masses of events with things like the Poltax riots and all that going on around here. It's had a real footpath in history of this country, and it's great to have these ghost stories that can remain and become these myths and legends for decades to come, hundreds of years to come. And I think that's part of retelling these stories, so that they're captured and they're retold again and again and again. Now, these stories that I come out with and these myths and legends, they're through literally years of research down in local museums, local papers, books, talking to residents, talking to staff, old families that have had links to the place. They've been gathered by myself and others as a collective history of these weird events that happen in the area. I hope you enjoyed this video. And so I've got more to do. I'm going to do the Fobbing one as well. I want to do a couple of others that I've got, and also I want to cover some videos outside of Thurrock. Still trying to keep it quite local, but again, if you've got any ideas of what you want me to cover, I know someone said One Tree Hill in the video before. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, give it a subscription on YouTube, and you can share it as much as you like. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.